The Women Beyond the Table is a community of empowered women who are rewriting the rules and taking their skills, knowledge, and wisdom beyond the table.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Women Beyond the Table podcast. I'm Tammy, and my brilliant co-host is Caryn, and here she is. Hi, Caryn. How you doing?
Hey, Tam. I'm so happy to be here with you, and are beyond excited about our guest today.
I know it's always a glorious day when we're together and we have a great guest. It makes it so the best day ever. But today, in particular, is a very special table talk for us because we have a guest who is phenomenal in every way. And to be fair, we do think highly of all of our guests. But this woman is way past the table and worked very hard to get there. Today's table talk topic is soul CPR with the Energy Alchemist. Yes, our guest is an Energy Alchemist. Her name is Wendy Hutchinson, and she is the founder of Alinea Life Coaching. Wendy helps people transmute and release ancestral and karmic patterns to raise your energy and frequency. She has authored the bestseller, Finding the Path of Me, which is an ascension guide to awakening and remembering who we are and why we are here. By the way, Caryn and I both read this book and we were blown away by it. Caryn highlighted the hell out of it and I underlined every other line, just saying. So Wendy, by the way, also hosts a podcast called The Path of Me, which you do want to check out, and has a YouTube channel that posts the video version of the show. She's a public speaker and provides workshops on empowerment nationally. So it's a lot. I hope I got it all right. So we want to say welcome, Wendy. We are so thrilled to have you here.
Oh, thank you. It's an honor to be here. I'm so excited to talk to y'all and share my story and answer questions. It's going to be awesome.
Beyond excited.
So let's get right into our topic, which is soul CPR. Wendy, how do you know it's time when the soul needs CPR?
Well, soul CPR, first of all, I want to give credit to the appropriate person who is a guest on my podcast, Lily Hernandez. And we were talking about how she had worked so hard on her career. She was a single mom, put herself through college. She had this incredible struggle and fight to get to the top, which is to be a director of a huge agency for social services, serving the underprivileged. And she literally achieved that, among many other things. But she was driving on this long commute to work, and she realized that all of a sudden she just started crying and crying and crying on the way to work. Like the tears just started coming, and she's like, what is this? What is going on? Like her soul was just dying, and she heard in her mind soul CPR. And she knew, and she just felt it in her core, like she needed. Her soul was dying. And everything she thought she wanted and achieved was not it.
I happen to have heard that podcast recording, and that just struck me. I just was like, wow, like your soul needs something. And we all experienced it where we're like, what is this I'm feeling? And people say, oh, they think it's depression or they think it's something. And it's really that their soul is in agony.
It's a feeling, and you feel crushed. You feel like your soul is dying inside. And because we know ourselves better than anyone, right? We know when we have been giving too much, when we are tapped out, when we're burned out, when we have nothing more to give and we're just done, right? So that's kind of when you get to that place, and we have this habit of pushing the feelings down. I got this. I can do another 10 volunteer events. I can host this. I can keep saying yes when I want to say no. But your body will never lie. Your heart will never lie. You're going to feel off, and in a big way. And the more you ignore it, the more aggressive those feelings present.
So let's find out, people tend to push that down, that feeling that something's off. They put on their mask, they go out every day, they do what they have to do. and they feel like crap, basically. And this can go on for years. So, what is it? I mean, is it that people are just, repeating these unhealthy patterns? Is it their subconscious is keeping them in a rut? Is it lack of what? That you keep going with this and it's something's wrong? Like why do you think that happens to people?
I think we have from birth such deep cultural, social, and emotional programming. And we're programmed by our nuclear families, by our parents, our siblings, our family culture, our religions, our social status, our social circles. We're constantly being reinforced a message of what worthiness looks like, what belonging looks like, what being successful looks like. And these standards and core beliefs, which aren't yours, by the way, they're someone else's, that are being constantly reinforced through, let's say, like for me, it was the Asian culture, constantly being reinforced by accolades and, constant reinforcement when you do well. Wow,
you write about that, Wendy. You write about praise and how praise is kind of the antithesis of love, because love is sort of unconditional, right? And praise is something that you could feed off of and to use as a motivational type of thing or a manipulation type of a thing.
Right, but it works, right? Because it feels good. Oh, mom and dad are praising me. That must mean they love me. So you just keep going back. I'm going to work harder. I want to make the softball team. I want to graduate and take AP classes. I want to do better. I want to go to college. I want to hit all the markers and make everyone proud of me, because that means I'm worthy.
Yeah, right? And get the attention.
Yeah. And so
isn't it an amazing thing, Wendy, when everything sort of blows up? Like, because in my experience, like when I have strived, I was the perfectionist, which I now understand is the opposite of doing good work. So I was in a race, I got married young, did things at a very rapid pace, got the job, got, what I thought was the epitome of success. And then everything just blew up. Like the Norman Rockwell life that I tried to have for my kids, it exploded. So once you're like, now what?
It comes as a shock and you're a little outraged because you're like, I did everything right. Why isn't everybody on board with me? Why isn't everybody on my program? Why can't you all just listen to me and do what you're
I know more than you do. I'm older than you are. I have experience. Like, why aren't you listening? Yeah.
I think our kids are given to us. They're such gifts, but they humble you.
We're learning from them, are we not? Like we always were raised like, no, respect your elders. We know better. We have wisdom, and I find that we're learning from young people. We're learning a spirit of flow of life, which I can't wait for you to talk about.
Yeah.
Yes, light worker and light.
Yeah, the kids, they really are. We think we're molding them, but they're really teaching us. And everything they're doing is mirroring the vulnerabilities that we have to work on ourselves. Right?
Wendy, I must ask you something, because it hit home with me, and it was beyond heart rendering, was what you went through with your son. And when because I'm dealing with something like that, and I found your story to be so inspirational, as you had to go through probably the most difficult time of your life. And how did you do that? Can you tell us about that?
I was really grateful, because what she's referring to is there was my son in 2017 was involved in a very extreme motorcycle accident. And a stranger called me in the morning from his phone. He had just been hit And he said, I don't know if he's alive. And I felt, we have a very strong soul connection. I felt like he was dead. He's dead on the road. It was this horrific. And I just started running, like screaming, running home. And my son and we've had many lifetimes together, and we have this intense soul connection. We love each other deeply, but he's just been in my life to really challenge. He just challenges me. He just does. And fortunately, by that time, I had been walking on my path for a while. So I had tools. I had spiritual tools. I had tools to help me navigate it. So I wasn't as reactive. You know, when we don't have tools and we're unconscious, we react to our situations in our lives that are difficult. Usually,
and even when you have tools, isn't it interesting what the universe brings you to say, oh, you think you have tools? Now try to deal with this.
Let's see how masterful
what you're
you
talking
are.
about is like, usually when your subconscious is in charge and you don't have tools, you haven't gone through any kind of, training or work, you're reactive. You're going to react the way you've been programmed to react.
Right. And then the chaos gets amplified because you're not centered. You're not asking
You're not
yourself.
grounded.
You're not grounded, and you're not asking, what is this teaching me? You're like, oh my God, I can't believe this happened. Why is this happening? You go into hysteria.
You're in survival mode.
You go into survival mode. You go into fear, right?
Fear is a big one. What's going to happen? What's going to happen? What's going to happen?
Especially in this case. And so I luckily had a lot of tools. And how do I come back to center? I took a lot of sea salt baths. That's where I kind of connect to myself. And it was just so hard. And I think we all have these soul contracts with our families, with our family members, especially our immediate family members, our spouses, our children, particularly before them, our nuclear families. And they're triggering things for us constantly. And one of my biggest fears was being a failure as a mom, as a human being, ergo not being worthy. Because if you're not successful in my culture, you're not worthy, right? And if you're a failure, there's just so much shame associated with that if you're not hitting the markers. And so there was a lot of emotions churning up in me, like, he had to come home, he couldn't walk, or he had his jaw wired shut, he couldn't feed himself, nothing, right? He couldn't walk he could only sit up in bed, that's it. And
so in witnessing and having to witness what he was going through, were you able to utilize these tools?
Yeah, but I'm not good. I mean, I wasn't perfect, right? I mean, it's
your flesh, it's your son, it's your flesh and blood. It's hard to be completely disconnected and say, this is a teaching moment. I mean, you're seeing your son suffer, you're seeing him struggle, and it's emotional.
Suffer. And the doctor sent him home and forgot to sign the pain medication. Now, he had 3 surgeries in 5 days because he was so busted up. And the doctor that night was tired, I guess, and wrote the prescription for all the pain meds and didn't put his number because it's narcotics.
Wow.
He had no pain meds that night. He had Tylenol and Advil, and he was just in excruciating pain. And we couldn't get anyone to sign the frickin', I was calling. What happened was I tipped, there were 2 things happening. One was this understanding, this is a huge clearing for us. This is a huge emotional soul growth experience for me. It's an emotional, energetic clearing for us, for a lot of karma that we had accumulated over lifetimes. This was going to kind of balance the scales. So there was that and that awareness. And there were a lot of times I was very masterful about holding that knowing and going one day at a time with whatever was coming up. And then there's this other side of fear that starts to rock your world and creep in, like, what if he never walks again? What am I going to do if he's handicapped?
What ifs?
What kind of life? Like, what is this going to cost me, financially? Like, you kind of go down that
starts ticking.
Yeah. So there was this push-pull going on. And all I could do really was be present in my moment, not even the day, but the moment, because he's going through healing. He's angry. He's and he's immobile. Who's he going to lash out at?
The person who knows loves him unconditionally.
Mom.
Of course.
Right.
Of course.
Absolutely. And it's just amazing that this is the most challenging thing I think a woman could go through with her in life. To see her child in pain is the most challenging thing any woman could go through.
It was hard. And then, you just don't know. Just with life, you just don't know what the future's going to bring.
And Wendy, you had such another amazing insight that you said that in some cases it does an injustice to send healing, like meta energy, to the next one because you don't know their journey. Like you don't know if they're supposed to be going through that. Right. And that was whoa.
Yeah, I'm a healer. I am a healer, and I could have intervened and sent energy to him and tried to heal him because my discomfort of watching him suffer was so great.
You wanted to do something.
You want to fix it. You want to fix it, but
you want to alleviate it.
That's codependent. That's codependent because you're not fixing it to be in service. You're doing it because you're so uncomfortable. You're trying to fix the pain that you're holding, watching them suffer. And I knew that we all have contracts and agreements. And if I'm constantly intervening and trying to make things more comfortable or better by sending him healing, maybe he's not going to get the soul lesson he was supposed to from this experience. So I did not send energy to him. He's, however, in our home, which is infused with my energy and frequency, which does, raise your vibration and things like that. But I was not actively sending healing to him or doing anything. I was just holding space, really, which was.
Yes, it was so beautiful. It was just being there and holding space for him.
Yeah, it was hard. You guys, I mean, there were times when I had breakdowns. I just be, like I said in my book, I cried a lot in my bathtub. I cried a lot. It was hard.
So how, like you in your book, you speak about Marconics a lot, and how did Marconics come in? How do you use those tools? How do you vibe it with everything that you're doing?
I think we don't know what we don't know, right? We don't know what we don't know. So I've always been very open to new things coming into my life. I've been the seeker. You're always seeking knowledge, you're always seeking ways to better yourself, I did a lot of reading at first. On my journey, I was like a sponge, right? And you just are reading all these self-help books and you're reading all these Super Soul Sunday authors. You're like, wow, these people are so wise. And you're kind of going through that buffet line, like I talk about in my book, and you're just pulling things. But at some point, I was part of a development circle, and we were a bunch of women that worked on our abilities and gifts, right? So we were seers, we were healers, we were very tapped into energy. And someone suggested, hey, we heard about this energy modality, Marconics, and we should read there were 2 books. We should read the books. And if we resonate with it, we should see if they'll come and do a training for us. And I didn't know anything about this energy modality. And it was mind-blowing to me because I had downloaded the first book on my Kindle and I opened it, I sat in bed reading, and all of a sudden all this energy was like coming out of this.
I read that you wrote that. I was
like, what the hell is this? What's this? But it did something. That energy was coming out, and it activated something, and I just said yes to that training without even finishing that book or knowing what is that, just like a soul knowing yes, I'm going to take that training. And I think part of it is really just trusting ourselves and trusting our feelings and knowing about everything, not just energy work, right? But the difference with this modality was it was for ascension. It was soul ascension. That was the purpose of this modality coming in, to help individuals who were ready and resonant to ascend higher, to go higher in frequency, basically. And you do that by, it's like we create a different light body structure. We're pulling karma and density out of your field if you get recalibrated, or even if
Wendy, both me and Tammy were recalibrated.
Awesome. So it.
Yeah.
Familiar.
It's a tool, right? And it's also an accelerant, because when you're pulling that density out of your field, first of all, you are going to go through a lot of clearing.
How can you tell clearing ascension symptoms from food poisoning, a common flu, a cold?
I think you have to assume that everything you're going through is a form of energetic clearing, manifesting in your physical body, mental body, emotional body. It can be emotional clearing. It could be physical. You might have old injuries where that injury spot starts to really hurt, but that's kind of coming up to release, right? There's just the release. So you're going to feel things physically to release. And when you are recalibrated, there's a lot of shedding and releasing, because what we're doing is helping you release density. Mm-hmm. It's energetic. There are things that no longer resonate with who you're becoming or where you're going. But the human aspect of you has to be willing to let it go. Right. And that's hard, because people want to hold on to the
change
old
versions. Is hard. Want to hold on to what you used to, what's comfortable.
Yeah. But as we are going higher, as we are ascending, we're letting go aspects of ourselves that no longer align with who we are becoming and who we are now. It's like we are here on this soul path to ascend, to learn, to let go of these patterns that have held us back, maybe lifetimes that keep repeating. And so as we go on the journey, we have to be willing to let go of those aspects of ourselves, and also the people that were in our lives when we were that aspect of ourselves. So you are going to find that your relationships are changing, your friendships are going to change. You become more selective about who feels really resonant and aligned with you.
That's why I became friends. That's why Tammy and I are doing this podcast.
Well, I love
Can
it.
I tell you something? You want to know something interesting? Caryn and I met in high school, and we liked each other, but we weren't friends in high school. Mm-hmm. So fast forward 41 years later, at our high school reunion, and we start talking, right?
And we never stopped talking since.
And we haven't stopped, because we just were like, wow, we're into the same things.
Isn't that amazing?
And it's amazing. But what you also said was very interesting. This was in the book too. People come into your home, into your life for reasons and seasons, and they're triggers, they're mirrors, right? They come in to teach you something. Yes. And it's true. Once you make the changes and move forward, those people, you naturally say, you start seeing it, because the mirror no longer affects you, because you've cleared it. You've cleared that. Yes. So it's time to okay, you were there for a while, and now it's
time to create space for the people who are
the new people
in resonance with you. And I think what came as a real surprise to me, not only as a healer, but in my everyday life, was I was growing and ascending and becoming higher and higher versions of myself, and assimilating those higher versions of myself. And then this is so amazing, because life starts to feel more in the flow. There isn't as much resistance. You're becoming more practiced at what feels right and going that direction, instead of doing things out of guilt, obligation, fear, right? And you think everybody wants that because it feels so great. People don't. Some people,
You would
they're
think they
choosing
want it.
a different reality and experience, which is fine. But it took me a while because I kept trying to pull these people up from the mud.
Yeah, you want to share them. You want to give them
the
the light. You want to share your light. You want them to come with you on your
It's
journey. And they're just
beautiful up
like,
here.
you're
They're like,
crazy.
Isn't it interesting that we really just, the best we can do is become the lighthouse. And
yeah,
whoever comes by and we attract, then amen. And the
I
ones
can't begin
that,
to tell you how many people are like, oh, you're into woo-woo. I'm like, it's not woo-woo, you
it's
know?
empty.
And they're just
It's
like,
not,
you're a
it's not
freak,
crazy.
you know? And I'm like, I'm not a freak, you know?
It's just, I think people just don't have an understanding. And like I said, people don't know what they don't know. And that's okay, because there's like a million paths up the mountain, and we're all taking our own path. And it's just what it needs to be for everybody. But I had to let go and accept everyone for where they are, for who they are, and just say, honor your journey, even if they don't honor mine. Because there's a lot of judgment and fear, right? Coming from.
oh, and yes, and that is so true, especially like I feel like with children, kids, like,
Mhm.
yes, I feel very much that it's just I'm allowing them to go live their life with zero expectations.
Hard,
Staff
right?
coming at me. And
Isn't
that's
that hard?
much easier said than done, because
Mhm.
I was raised very much where you respect your elders, you respect, you go to your grandmother's house, you go, like, it's just whatever's convenient for them.
And
we're okay with that.
but we also have to be okay with our parents having opinions about that, right? Like, why aren't they in a corporate job? Because their programming is telling them this is what success looks like, and we raise successful people.
I was
what
gonna
we do.
Yeah, I think that's something to think about, because there's a lot of change going on now. I think a lot of it was also motivated by the pandemic, with people stopping and looking at things. But for a very long time, there was like this character core that we kind of had to like toe the line growing up with. And a lot of families have it where, this is how we do things. And do as I say, don't do as I do. There's a lot of stuff that we took in. And a lot of not knowing better, of course, they didn't. You still see it, but at least now you're seeing there's like a shift towards people wanting to look at things differently and do it differently. And I don't know if it's so much what our kids are teaching us. I'm not really sure, because it's hard to say, but something out there is moving us in a direction of looking at things differently. Yeah.
There's a bigger picture. There's a cosmic order to things.
Right.
It's not a coincidence or random that the entire world shut down for 2 years. There's the bigger.
There are no coincidences. I agree.
And Wendy, what you said in your book at some point also, it's like, unfortunately, like most of us don't grow when things are just like easy peasy. Like, we're growing
from challenges.
And spirituality isn't like the Zen pose on the beach, at sunset. I think you said that too.
Yep.
That was perfect. It's usually when we're curled up on the floor in a closet that we're growing.
But we also have to be kind to ourselves and compassionate towards ourselves when we're going through the process, and understand this is part of it. We're so conditioned to think things have to look good and glossy and perfect, and that's what we're going for. But that's really a false front, right? No one's life is that glossy. I look at some of these social
on Instagram, it is.
Yeah, on Instagram. I mean, there's a lot of people still live that way. Hey, it's not like you think because we surround ourselves in our mastermind alliance with people who are enlightened, who are light seekers, who are doing this. We think, oh, that's the way it is. It's more the other way. I think the tide is moving, but it's still more the other way. Look, a couple of years ago, I was that person who always said, if you ask me any question, I said, oh, everything's fine. Everything's fine. It's great. Never, it wasn't. It was totally not great. I would turn the conversation, how are you? How are you doing? Because I didn't want to get into how I was doing, because I just couldn't deal with how I was doing.
Yeah.
That's a lot of people, masks that people wear.
Right.
Everything's fine. Everything's good
Once you
because
start
you're
doing the
not weak,
work,
right? You don't want to look weak.
once you start doing the work, and that's the thing, right? Once you start doing the work and you get vulnerable and you get real with yourself, you start to peel back layers and you start to emerge. You start to emerge as your authentic self, and you start to step into your power, and you start to embody your worthiness. Like, you know that you deserve better and you need to be respected and treated better. And all of a sudden, you start having courage and you start drawing boundaries and lines in the sand, and you start telling people no.
Yeah, your confidence goes up.
How good is that, Wendy? Boundaries and telling people, no, I'm sorry, that's not going to work.
So Wendy, is this soul sovereignty that you're talking about?
Yes, that's sovereignty.
Amazing. I love that.
When you are empowered, when you are no longer answering to anyone but yourself, and you allow everyone to feel whatever they need to feel and be triggered by you, because you're speaking your truth, you're standing in your power, and you are charting your own path. You're not attached or driven by the opinions of anyone around you. You are claiming yourself in a way that says, I'm here, and I'm here for a very specific soul mission. I'm here to be myself and to move forward and bow to no one. That's sovereignty. That's
wonderful.
Yeah.
I love the way you phrased it.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, that's true power, because nobody owns you. You own yourself.
We're speechless.
I know,
We're
there's
just like, yeah,
we're going to
that's it.
ponder that for a couple of seconds there.
Yeah, like
So
that's
sovereign.
it.
So
She
sovereign.
just said it. That's what we want. That's what I want. Yeah.
But you know, it comes with making difficult choices, because you have to align with your truth all the time, not 10% of the time. You have to make hard calls. You have to say no. You have to let go of maybe friends who've been friends for 25 years, but you know what? They're not interested in going further. And it starts to feel heavy.
Mhm.
Starts to feel like you're putting all the energy in and they're not meeting you halfway. And you feel bad and you feel like you need to make it okay. And you need to kind of gradually, now from
Start to notice the people that don't mean anything by it, but it's like under the guy, it's contempt. I mean, when you'll say something to somebody and they'll be like, oh, well, why are you going to do that because of that? And then those are the people that, like have been falling away.
Right. And there are people that are projecting their own fears on you. It's their own, really? You're going to do that? Like, you're going to fail. Like, those are their own, those are their own insecurities and their own fears that they're projecting out. And what happens is when they see us stepping out and coming forward and leading and creating and just being a force, and we're driven by our inner soul calling, they know that they're supposed to be doing that too. They have the power. Every single person here has the power to do it. But fear keeps so many people playing small, and it keeps them tethered. Fear is a limitation. Attachment to who you were is a limitation. Because
Wendy, how about staying small so others could feel big? Like to keep yourself small because you don't want to be
that's
shiny.
practicing lose-win, where you're like always willing to lose so somebody can win. So maybe you'll get something, or maybe they'll like you, or what have you. But you know what? Like what you're saying is very powerful, because people, when they see you changing, they get nervous.
Mm-hmm.
They don't know how to deal with that. Especially people who've known you for a while. They're like, what's wrong with her? Why is she acting like that? What's different? What happened? Something had to have happened. What happened?
Use the roles.
And sometimes that's like a whole other interesting thing of change. Is hard for people to change, but it's hard for them to watch people change around them. Yeah. Instead of being happy for their journey, they're kind of like, what's wrong? What are you doing? It's very interesting. Yeah.
Yeah. But like you said, Tammy, when I had you on my show, we're going for the win-win. We want win-win. You win, I
That's
win.
my motto.
Yeah, we can come together. We can collaborate. We can communicate, and everybody can come out a win-win here. But to get to that place where we're always looking for the win-win with the people that we interact with, we have to be interacting with people who also are in that
Our
vibration
win-win too. Yeah.
and are ready to embrace that, because a lot of people are still in the I lose, you win mindset.
Or I win, you lose.
I win, you lose, whatever it is.
You avoid the lose people. Those no matter what.
And you have the triggers of where people are, they don't want, or trigger something. You're someone successful trigger their failure, or they and I find that like every victimizer needs a victim, and every victim needs a victimizer. So they're kind of opposite sides of the same coin in terms of your mindset. So like it's just very interesting how you will find what you need in either direction, and you want to stay with the ones that are on your frequency.
Right.
Yeah.
My mom used to always say, "Make sure rest in pieces that there's a lid for every pot." Yeah, it's true.
And I think also we have to allow everyone to be themselves. It's okay. Like that has
Exactly.
very freeing to me to be like,
it can get disappointing. It really can. And then of course it's like, what does it bring up for us when the disappointment comes up? Because it always comes back to us.
But that's expectations when you're disappointed.
Yes. Unmet expectations.
that just tells you, there's a little more to unpack there. And I think we have to be really careful about how we view ourselves. It doesn't mean you're a failure. It doesn't mean you're not good enough. It just means we're constantly growing. We're growing, and we need to be kind to ourselves through that process and recognize that our journey is infinite. No matter how far I go, there's more. There's another layer.
The onion. It's that onion.
Yeah, but you never get to the center. You just keep peeling and peeling layers off, but as you go, it becomes easier because you are not afraid of vulnerability. You're not afraid to confront yourself. I could not do vulnerability. Like I wrote in my book, I went to therapy with my notes, and I'm like, we're going to fix all this in 5 sessions.
I love that you went to therapy with like printed notes.
Yeah, I'm not wasting sessions rehashing my past. Just read these documents. We're going to get through.
That cracked me up.
I was on her couch for years.
We need to make this snappy.
Yeah, I don't have time, to be on your couch for years. Let's just fix everybody else, and we can carry on.
I'll be fine.
No, that was great control. Typing up the notes and bringing them over. Like I'm giving you a piece of myself. This is what you're allowed to say. That's it.
Like, oh my God. Control-free perfectionist, Asian.
Well, I love it. That was like, I was like laughing through that. I thought that was great.
Did that. It was so funny. My mom said she did the same thing, which just made me crack up.
There you go. Talk about an origin story. There you go.
But
so Wendy, everything that you're saying is like really resonating and very deep. And we just could talk about it for hours, but unfortunately we have to like start coming to the close. So if there's any pearl of wisdom that you like to drop down before you tell our audience how to find you, to work with you, please give us a pearl of wisdom.
Yeah, I think the key is it always is coming back to you. You have to always sit with what you're feeling and be like, get curious, like, where is this feeling coming from? Why am I feeling this? Because it's so easy to project our wounds on someone else or blame someone else for whatever emotional discomfort we're going through. But really, it really is a gift, because it's really always redirecting us back in. Get curious, sit with ourselves, like, okay, gosh, maybe I always feel like I'm on the outside and these two friends are just getting really close and I'm really uncomfortable and I'm really feeling bad about myself. Here I am being on the outside again. No, I'm creating that, right? Where's that coming from? Where is that coming from? What is that insecurity in me that's coming up? We always need to turn the lens inward. I always say, turn your camera to selfie mode. Stop looking out there. You turn it on selfie.
I love so much. That's great.
I love that. Look at yourself. Yeah, because we were talking about that, Caryn and I, about how sometimes you look at a person and you're just assuming like everything that they're doing is about you. They're directed towards you, and they're being disrespectful to you, and they're insulting you, and you're like, and it's not even the case. It has nothing to do with that. It's just how you are looking at everything and taking it in. And Caryn and I had a whole discussion about that. It's really very interesting.
Agreements,
but it starts with
anything.
us. It starts and it ends with us in a lot of ways.
Yeah.
That was a another great insight. You've been full of pearls of wisdom, actually, the whole podcast, and great insights. Now, tell us how the audience can reach you so they can, follow up and study with you, learn more.
They could definitely go on my website, which is alinealifecoaching.com, ALINEA lifecoaching.com. You can sign up for my newsletter. I send a newsletter out every month. You can access my podcast, my YouTube channel. If I'm doing events, those will be posted there. I'm actually really excited because I'm getting ready to create like an Academy of the Soul, just courses that people can access. I'm working on that right now, which will be online. But also people could also take the courses with me, in a workshop online.
Wendy, where are you located?
I'm in Houston, Texas.
She's in Houston.
Oh, wow.
With the internet, we can all work together regardless of where people live, unless the time zones are just too far off.
Right.
Yeah, no, that's
but you know what? Thank God for Zoom, and it's all doable. But Wendy, thank you so much for being on and for taking the time to be a guest. We really appreciate it. And we've learned a lot, and have a wonderful day. Aloha.
Aloha. Thank you.
Aloha.
Thank you so much for listening. We hope you enjoyed this episode as much as we enjoyed bringing it to you. We would love your support, so please leave us a review wherever you listen to this podcast. If you are interested in hearing more of the Beyond the Table podcast, please subscribe so you don't miss out on future episodes. Check out the show notes to find out how to reach us, and remember, you are strong, intelligent, and sensational. You are Beyond the Table.